There's a lot of pieces of history that you don't get to learn in history class. One of these things is the history of the Culper Ring, or Washington's spies, or Washington's Secret Six, whatever you want to call them. It's a little known fact that George Washington had his own ring of spies, and it was so secretive that even George Washington didn't know the names of his own spies. He worked together with head of intelligence Benjamin Tallmadge to create the Culper Ring. Culper Ring was named after a county in Virginia that was nearby. The idea was to have these two guys named Samuel Culper Sr. and Samuel Culper Jr., which was Abraham Woodhull and Robert Townsend. These guys would be the main correspondents, and they would bring back information from the redcoats that were currently in New York. So Abraham Woodhull's deal was that he would go to New York and claim that he was visiting his sister. He would get some information from the redcoats, posing as one of them, and then he'd come back and bring it to other people. Specifically, this guy named Gabe Brewster. His name was Caleb. That's not a hard name to figure out. His name was Caleb. Caleb Brewster worked with this girl named Anna Strong, who would put petticoats and handkerchiefs on a clothesline. A black petticoat or a white petticoat indicated whether he was in town or not, and then how many handkerchiefs were on there, which hiding spot he was in, because there were 6 of them, which is a pretty good system until somebody figures it out. Now, Abraham Woodhull was the main head of this operation when it came to actually getting the information to George Washington, because Caleb would then give it to Benjamin Tallmadge, who would give it to George Washington. George Washington would deal with his people to figure out what to do with that information. Sometimes they didn't get information at all. Robert Townsend took over in the later years of the Revolutionary War, and there were a couple close calls when he almost got caught. Now, the big question surrounding this was, did it help them in the revolution? And I would say yes. As the chief of literally everything, George Washington, he had all the information that he needed in order to know when they would be attacking, where, who's involved, how big is their army. He knew all of that. So that was a big perk for them. When you talk about the Revolutionary War, it's actually very impressive that we managed to do something when Britain owned the world, essentially. They had colonies everywhere. They were huge, and we just kicked their butt, and then they were like, oh, okay. I mean, they weren't done with us. There was the War of 1812, which is like the Revolution Part 2, but like that's another video. Of course, while we had like illegal tactics, and we had all these other things that we were doing, little known, we also had a spy ring. So there's a show on AMC called Turn, Washington Spies. And it is a bit of a work of historical fiction, because it takes its own creative, Hollywood interpretation of what happened, but it is a good show, and it does let you know what it was like for these people. Washington spies had their own codes, they had disappearing letters, they got rid of all evidence that they were even a thing. So, to this day, historians are still figuring out who was involved, and they're digging up new letters, and they're deciphering things, and it's still an ongoing investigation, I'd say.